In this week's episode, we look at all the prep work that went into getting the material for the keelson ready, and planing it down, and putting the scarves on. Sit back and enjoy. Unfortunately, the thickness planer that I was using broke down and it's really hard to find parts for it. So I went out and purchased another thickness planer to keep the project rolling along. I'm still searching for parts for the Mastercraft. Hopefully I'll be able to sell it or something. So first time using this, let's see what it works like. As I had originally set this up to do 3/4 board, as you can see I can't get up far enough right here to do a full scarf on the 2x10. So what I'm going to have to do is add extra pieces here onto the side, which will allow me to run my jig up further on my scarf, which will allow me to fully create that scarf that I need. So I have it all modified there with that extra piece put on, a block to tie them together there, and that back piece to keep it the right size. And I got my next scarf in here, all set to go. And there's that splice all done. Got it sanded, so looks good. Should glue up well with the next piece, and that's one board done. So my router quit on me. I've decided to take it apart to see what's wrong. I suspect it's the bushings, but that's just my guess. Let's dig into it and find out. Well, that bushing looks okay.
Oh gosh. This one didn't pop out.
And yeah, that's burnt all the way down to the wire. And the carbon is totally gone off the end. That would be the problem. So now I've got to order a new set, and we'll be back in business again. So I figured I'd take the next couple of days, get the keelson material all ready to go on. It's time consuming, have to cut them and put the scarves on and everything like that. But here's the 22 pieces that I have done up. I've cut them straight now. Now my next step will be to mark my scarves on it and to cut those scarves on my bandsaw to remove most of the material to make it easier to do the rotoring and get that scarf nice and flat. So I tried cutting the excess material for the scarf off with the bandsaw. I found that the blade is just a tiny hair too flexible, even though it's an inch wide, and that it was awful hard to hold that 8-foot piece of 2x10 flat on the table as I pushed it through. So now, with knowing that, I got to try to figure out another way to pre-cut these scarves so I don't wear out my rotor whenever. So one of the ways I figured I would try would be to take my thickness planer and plane my scarf so that I could remove the excess material. The only drawback to that is I'm going to have a bunch of shavings instead of a nice little piece of wood that I'm able to throw in my furnace to provide heat. That seems to work half decent. Gives my arm a good workout if nothing else. So I've got about 15 more that I have to do. So I better get going. So we got both ends of all 20 of them done. Now we're over here. Set my dad on sweep up duty to get rid of the pile of shavings so we don't have to wander around in that. But quite a few shavings for a little bit of scarfing. So to set up to do a scarf on one end of these boards, I've got a groove cut in here from all the others, and I got a tiny little mark there that I more or less moved the plank to. So that's roughly where it starts cutting the plank for the scarf. So the next thing I gotta do is I put this clamp here with a couple of clamps on either side. Just to get a little bit of tension on the plank so that whenever I adjust it so that it's in the right location, it's going to stay there. Then coming back to where I'm going to put the scarf, I got my table that runs back and forth. I've got a square line across here from my edge that I've already straightened, and what I'm doing is I'm going to check that line with my jig here, and in this case and double check it a second time. See that the edge of the square is on the line there, and It's touching the line there. Indicates just a tiny hair more. Yeah, that's relatively good. Now, since the board is in place, I tighten down the two clamps here. And what I'm looking to do is make sure that this board is pushed down tight to the plywood frame underneath with no gaps. And the reason for this is I've got a 1/2 inch board here right at the very back that kicks it up, and when I do this, it puts a lot of pressure on the front to make sure that it's held in place. Now, the next thing I have to check is if there's any gap underneath the board, and I'll see if I can get a decent shot of it. So you can see on this side it's got that shadow right underneath there. So the whole board is up a little bit. As you can see, it's moving. Okay, I will have to stick a couple of screws in this one to hold it down. And by sticking that one screw in, it's tight all the way across now. Now, with my jig in place, I get to pick my router up, put it in, and start routering, making sure I miss that screw that's there. There it is. I've got it started. Now I just have to do the rest up to the line. Well, after about 10 or 12 hours of rotoring, I got all my scarves done for my keelson, finally. Just to do one little job, the amount of time it takes.